The sound of my daughter's sobs filled the car as Sheriff Sheila's face pressed against my window, her badge gleaming in the afternoon sun. Her words cut through the air like bullets. Your child needs to learn that rules apply to everyone in this town, everyone except me. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The other parents in the school pickup line stared in silent horror as the most powerful law enforcement officer in our county publicly humiliated my 8-year-old daughter for absolutely nothing. "Daddy, why is she so angry at me?" Emily whispered through tears. The sheriff's eyes narrowed as she tapped her badge with one finger and her holstered gun with the other. "I would be very careful about what happens next if I were you," she said, her voice dripping with threat. That was the moment everything changed. That afternoon in the Pinecrest Elementary pickup line marked the end of our peaceful life in Millfield. I did not know then that Sheriff Sheila would spend the next 6 months trying to destroy my family. I could not have imagined that this encounter would eventually lead to her standing before a judge, her career and freedom hanging in the balance as my daughter finally received the justice she deserved. Millfield was the kind of small town where 4th of July parades still mattered, and neighbors brought casseroles when someone fell ill. My daughter Emily and I had moved there 3 years ago after my wife passed away. We needed a fresh start, somewhere quiet and safe where Emily could heal from her mother's absence and I could rebuild our lives. The town square featured a gazebo where summer concerts took place every Friday evening. Local shops lined Main Street with their striped awnings and window displays that changed with the seasons. Pine Creek meandered along the eastern edge of town, providing fishing spots and swimming holes that became community gathering places during hot summer months. It was not perfect, but it was home. Emily attended Pinecrest Elementary, a red brick building surrounded by towering oak trees that had witnessed generations of children passing through its doors. The school run became our cherished routine. Each morning, I would drop her off with a kiss on the forehead and a reminder to be kind. Each afternoon, I would join the orderly line of vehicles that formed along Maple Avenue precisely at 3:15, waiting patiently as crossing guards and teachers ensured every child found their ride home safely. The pickup line operated on a simple but strictly enforced system. Parents arrived in sequence, formed a single file along the curb, and moved forward as directed by staff. Cutting in line was not merely frowned upon, it was prohibited for safety reasons. The school principal, Dr. Harris, had implemented this protocol after a near accident involving an impatient parent the previous year. Everyone respected the rules because everyone understood they existed to protect our children. Sheriff Sheila Jackson had served as county sheriff for nearly 7 years when we moved to Millfield. Her campaign posters still adorned some local businesses, "Keeping Millfield Safe," emblazoned across an image of her stern face and precisely positioned Stetson hat. She was tall with broad shoulders, and her uniform was always impeccably pressed. When she entered a room, conversations fell silent. My first encounters with Sheriff Sheila had been unremarkable. I had nodded respectfully when passing her patrol vehicle on Main Street. She had checked my driver's license during a routine sobriety checkpoint and waved me through with barely a word. At community events, she stood apart, observing rather than participating, maintaining a calculated distance between herself and the citizens she served. "Sheriff Sheila takes care of her friends and punishes her enemies," Mrs. Chen from the pharmacy had once whispered to me while filling Emily's allergy prescription. At the time, I had dismissed her comment as small-town gossip. I did not yet understand that in Millfield, Sheriff Sheila was not merely a law enforcement officer, she was the law itself. There had been whispers, of course. The hardware store owner who suddenly faced multiple building code violations after supporting Sheriff Sheila's opponent in the last election. The high school football coach who resigned abruptly following a traffic stop that no one would discuss openly. The county commissioner whose son received a warning rather than a DUI despite crashing his truck into the town's welcome sign. I should have paid more attention to these warning signs, these ripples of disquiet beneath our town's placid surface. Perhaps I could have protected Emily from what was to come. But like most residents of Millfield, I kept my head down and my opinions private, believing that respect for authority would ensure our peaceful existence remained undisturbed. How wrong I was, how terribly, catastrophically wrong. The afternoon that changed everything began like any other, sunny, mild, with a hint of spring in the air. Emily had received a perfect score on her science project that morning. She clutched her certificate proudly as she climbed into the car, eager to place it on our refrigerator alongside her other achievements. Neither of us could have imagined that our ordinary day was about to collide violently with Sheriff Sheila's extraordinary sense of entitlement. The digital clock on my dashboard read 3:12 p.m. when I joined the pickup line outside Pinecrest Elementary. I was fifth in the queue, having arrived early to secure a good position. Emily always appreciated not having to wait long after the final bell. Spring sunshine filtered through the trees lining the schoolyard, casting dappled shadows across the pavement. Parents ahead of me scrolled through phones or adjusted rearview mirrors, all of us participating in this choreographed daily ritual. At precisely 3:20 p.m., the school doors opened, releasing a flood of children into the yard. Teachers guided them into orderly lines as the pickup procedure commenced. The first vehicle moved forward, collected 2 children, and departed. The second followed suit. The system worked with reassuring predictability. I was checking my email when movement in my side mirror caught my attention. A black SUV with tinted windows had pulled onto the grass beside the line of waiting cars. It accelerated suddenly, kicking up dirt and gravel as it cut diagonally across the lane, positioning itself directly in front of my vehicle. The maneuver was so aggressive that I instinctively pressed my brake pedal, though I was already stationary. The window of the SUV rolled down to reveal Sheriff Sheila's unmistakable profile. She was not in her patrol car but in her personal vehicle. Yet she wore her uniform and Stetson, the visible symbols of her authority. She did not acknowledge me or the disruption she had caused. She simply stared forward, adjusting her rearview mirror as though her action were perfectly acceptable. My initial reaction was disbelief rather than anger. Surely the sheriff, of all people, understood why the pickup line rules existed. Surely she recognized the poor example she was setting. I tapped my horn lightly. A quick, polite sound intended to communicate a mistake had been made. Sheriff Sheila's head snapped around. Her eyes locked with mine through her side mirror. She made no move to correct her position. The parent behind me honked as well, longer and more insistent. Other parents began to notice the disruption. A crossing guard approached, then hesitated upon recognizing the sheriff. Emily appeared at the school entrance then, her blue backpack bouncing against her small frame as she searched for our car. A teacher pointed her in our direction. My daughter's face brightened when she spotted our vehicle, but confusion clouded her expression as she realized she could not reach us because of the sheriff's SUV blocking her path. I made a decision then, one born of parental instinct rather than self-preservation. I exited my vehicle. "Excuse me, Sheriff," I called, maintaining a respectful tone as I approached her window. "There's a line for pickup. We've all been waiting our turn." Sheriff Sheila turned slowly. Her expression remained neutral, but her eyes hardened. "Is there a problem?" My daughter can't get to our car because you've cut the line, I explained, gesturing toward Emily, who now stood uncertainly on the sidewalk, clutching her science award certificate. The school has strict rules about pickup procedure for the children's safety. Do you know who I am? Sheriff Sheila asked, her voice dropping to a dangerous register. Yes, ma'am. You're Sheriff Jackson. That's why I'm surprised you'd bypass the safety protocols the school has established. Her door swung open with such force that I had to step back to avoid being struck. Sheriff Sheila emerged to her full height, using her physical presence to intimidate. Parents watched in stunned silence. Children froze in place. Let me make something abundantly clear, she said, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. I enforce the laws in this county. I do not wait in lines. I do not follow protocols created by school administrators who earn half my salary. Emily had begun walking toward us, her small face pinched with worry. Sheriff Sheila noticed her approach and turned her attention to my daughter. Is this your child? She demanded. Without waiting for my response, she addressed Emily directly. Your father needs to learn about respecting authority. Perhaps next time he will think twice before questioning my actions. Emily stopped in her tracks, her eyes widening with fear. I just want to go home, she whispered. Sheriff Sheila stepped closer to my daughter, towering over her 8-year-old frame. What was that? Speak up when an officer addresses you. Please, I interjected, moving to stand between them. She's just a child. A child who needs to learn that there are consequences for disrespect in my town, Sheriff Sheila retorted. She bent down to Emily's eye level, her badge inches from my daughter's face. Your daddy thinks he can tell the sheriff what to do. Do you think that's right? Tears welled in Emily's eyes. The certificate crumpled in her trembling hands. Answer me, Sheriff Sheila demanded. And no, ma'am, Emily stammered, a single tear tracking down her cheek. That's right, Sheriff Sheila straightened. You remember that and remember my face, because I remember yours now. The threat hung in the air like a thundercloud. Parents quickly collected their children and departed. No one spoke. No one intervened. The crossing guard looked away. Dr. Harris, who had emerged from the building during the confrontation, retreated inside without comment. As Sheriff Sheila returned to her vehicle, she paused beside me. Consider this a verbal warning, she said quietly. Next time there will be paperwork. She drove away, leaving Emily sobbing in my arms and me with a growing realization that our peaceful life in Millfield had just ended. The changes in Emily were immediate and heartbreaking. That night, she refused dinner and asked if we could move away from Millfield. For the first time since her mother's death, she requested that her bedroom door remain open while she slept. The following morning, she feigned illness to avoid school. When I gently insisted she attend, she emptied her backpack, removing her treasured keychains and personalized pencil case, leaving only the bare essentials. I do not want to attract attention, she explained with a child's pragmatic logic that broke my heart. The school counselor called me that afternoon. Emily had spent her lunch period alone in the library rather than on the playground. When asked why, she had said, "The sheriff might come back." That evening, as Emily picked at her macaroni and cheese, headlights swept across our living room wall. A patrol car moved slowly past our house, then circled the block before passing again. Emily dropped her fork and retreated to her room without a word. The message was clear. We were being watched. 3 days after the incident, as I drove Emily to her piano lesson, flashing lights appeared in my rearview mirror. Deputy Wilson, a man I recognized from community events but had never spoken to, approached my window with his hand resting on his holstered weapon. "License and registration," he stated flatly, refusing to meet my eyes. "May I ask what I did wrong, Deputy Wilson?" I inquired, keeping my voice steady for Emily's benefit. "Your right tail light appears to be malfunctioning," he responded. "Step out of the vehicle, please." My tail light had been functioning perfectly that morning. Nevertheless, I complied, instructing Emily to remain inside. Deputy Wilson conducted a thorough search of my person before inspecting my vehicle with unusual scrutiny. He issued a fix-it ticket with a court date 30 days away and a potential fine of $275. "You might want to check all your lights regularly," he suggested as he handed me the citation. "Sheriff's Department has been instructed to maintain strict traffic enforcement in school zones." The emphasis he placed on "instructed" told me everything I needed to know. This became our new normal. Over the next 2 weeks, I received citations for rolling through a stop sign I had definitely paused at, for driving 5 miles above the speed limit on an empty county road, and for illegal parking in a spot I had used without incident for years. Each stop was conducted by a different deputy. Each interaction felt increasingly hostile. Emily's teacher called to express concern about my daughter's declining participation in class. "She seems afraid to raise her hand or draw attention to herself," Mrs. Abernathy explained. "This is not like her at all." I decided to file a formal complaint about Sheriff Sheila's behavior. The county administration building housed both the sheriff's department and the office of county commissioners. I approached the receptionist, requested the appropriate forms, and was directed to a small waiting area. After 45 minutes, Commissioner Brandt emerged from his office. "I understand you wish to file a complaint against Sheriff Jackson," he stated without preamble. "Yes, sir. Regarding an incident at Pinecrest Elementary that involved my daughter." Commissioner Brandt glanced at his watch. "Sheriff Jackson is an elected official with an exemplary record of service to this community. Any grievances about her conduct would need to be substantiated with considerable evidence." "I have witness statements from other parents," I offered. "Written and notarized," he countered. "Not yet, but—" "Then I suggest you return when your paperwork is in order." He turned to leave, then paused. "Though I would advise careful consideration before proceeding. False accusations against law enforcement officers carry serious consequences." That evening, I received a call from Dr. Harris, Emily's principal. Her tone was apologetic but firm. "The annual safety inspection of our pickup and drop-off procedures has been moved up. Sheriff Jackson will be personally overseeing compliance next week." The implied warning was unmistakable. At the grocery store the following day, I noticed Mrs. Chen from the pharmacy deliberately turning down another aisle to avoid me. At the gas station, Mr. Perez, whose son played with Emily, pretended not to see my wave. People who had previously greeted me warmly now maintained careful distance. We had become pariahs in our own community. My breaking point came when Emily returned from school with a permission slip for a field trip to the county courthouse, where Sheriff Sheila would provide a personal tour and discussion of law enforcement careers. Emily's hands trembled as she handed me the form. "Please do not make me go," she whispered. "Please, Dad." That night, after Emily had finally fallen asleep, I sat at our kitchen table surrounded by citation notices and increasingly urgent bills. My employer had called that morning to discuss my frequent absences due to court appearances and Emily's school issues. Our savings were dwindling. Our community had abandoned us. The system designed to protect citizens from abuse of power had been co-opted by the very person abusing that power. My phone pinged with a text message from an unknown number. Coffee tomorrow, 6 a.m., diner on Route 16. Others like you. Come alone. I almost deleted it, suspecting a trap. Then a second message arrived. My son was arrested last Easter. Planted evidence. Same pattern. The message was signed simply Martinez. I recognized the name immediately. Miguel Martinez's son had been a star athlete with a scholarship to state. His arrest for drug possession had shocked the community. The charges were eventually dropped due to evidentiary issues, but the scholarship had been rescinded. The family had moved away shortly after. For the first time since our confrontation with Sheriff Sheila, I felt something other than fear. I felt a spark of hope. I was not alone, and if there were others, there might be a way forward. As I prepared for bed, another patrol car drove slowly past our house. This time, instead of drawing the curtains, I stood in the window and watched it pass. I would no longer hide. I would no longer allow my daughter to live in fear. Tomorrow would mark the beginning of our resistance. The roadside diner stood just beyond county lines, a strategic location where Sheriff Sheila's jurisdiction ended. I arrived at 5:50 a.m., parking at the far end of the lot where I could observe other vehicles approaching. The pre-dawn air was crisp as I hurried inside, selecting a booth with a clear view of both entrances. Miguel Martinez sat in the corner booth, older and more careworn than I remembered from community basketball games. Beside him sat an elderly man I recognized as former Judge Thornton, who had retired abruptly last year. A woman approximately my age occupied the fourth seat, her expression guarded. "Robert Davidson," Miguel greeted me quietly. "Thank you for coming. This is Eleanor Collins. Her flower shop mysteriously failed 3 health inspections after she refused to provide free arrangements for the sheriff's department fundraiser." Eleanor nodded grimly. "I had to close my business of 15 years. My appeals were lost repeatedly." Judge Thornton cleared his throat, and I was strongly encouraged to take early retirement after questioning certain warrant applications from the sheriff's department. Their stories poured forth like a dam breaking. Judge Thornton described increasingly questionable search warrants approved under pressure. Eleanor detailed systematic harassment through selective code enforcement. Miguel revealed that his son's arresting officer had later admitted the evidence had been planted on direct orders from Sheriff Sheila, though he refused to testify publicly due to fear of reprisal. "There are others," Eleanor assured me. "Many others, but people are afraid." "Fear is her currency," Judge Thornton observed, "but it only works when we remain isolated." Miguel placed a small digital recorder on the table. "Document everything, every interaction, every patrol car that passes your house, every citation, times, dates, badge numbers." Eleanor slid a business card across the table. "This is my cousin's contact information. She works for the State Attorney General's office in the Public Integrity Unit. She cannot officially open an investigation without substantial evidence, but she can advise us on what constitutes admissible documentation." Judge Thornton added his contribution. "Sheriff Department budgets and expenditure reports are public records. I have noticed concerning patterns in financial allocations over the past 3 fiscal years. Asset forfeitures with incomplete documentation. Equipment purchases from vendors with connections to Sheriff Sheila's family." For 2 hours, we formulated a strategic approach. Judge Thornton would analyze financial records for irregularities. Eleanor would discreetly identify and contact other victims. Miguel would serve as liaison with his contacts in neighboring counties' law enforcement agencies. My role would be documentation and evidence gathering, particularly regarding the pattern of harassment my family now faced. As our meeting concluded, a final participant joined us, Deputy Lewis Gardner, who had served in the department for 22 years. His arrival caused momentary tension until he placed his badge on the table. "I submitted my resignation this morning," he announced. "I cannot continue to wear this badge while witnessing what has happened to our department." Deputy Gardner provided crucial insider perspective. Sheriff Sheila maintained control through a combination of intimidation and patronage. Deputies were divided into favored and disfavored groups. Assignments, overtime, and promotions depended on absolute loyalty. Those who questioned orders faced isolation, dangerous patrol assignments, or manufactured internal affairs investigations. "There are good officers trapped in an impossible situation," Deputy Gardner explained. "They have families, mortgages, no transferable skills. Sheriff Sheila knows this and exploits it." Over subsequent weeks, our network expanded cautiously. Each new ally brought additional evidence of Sheriff Sheila's abuses. A county clerk provided copies of suspicious budget transfers. A dispatcher shared recordings of Sheriff Sheila directing deputies to target specific individuals. A teacher from Emily's school confirmed that Sheriff Sheila had demanded access to my daughter's academic records without proper authorization. I installed security cameras around our home, documenting the frequent drive-by surveillance. I recorded every interaction with deputies, maintaining meticulous notes about each encounter. My phone contained dozens of time-stamped photographs of my vehicle before each journey, proving that alleged equipment violations were fabricated. The most damning evidence came unexpectedly. Dr. Harris, Emily's principal, contacted me through Alina. The school's security system had recorded Sheriff Sheila's confrontation with my daughter in its entirety, with audio. Dr. Harris had preserved this recording despite instructions to delete it. "I cannot stand by any longer," she explained, "not after seeing how this has affected Emily." After 6 weeks of careful documentation and coordination, Alina's cousin from the Attorney General's office agreed to meet with our group. We presented our evidence systematically: financial irregularities, pattern of targeted harassment, testimony from multiple victims, audio and video recordings, internal department communications. "This is substantial," she acknowledged after reviewing our materials. "Sufficient to open a formal investigation and potentially request oversight from the state police." That evening, I sat with Emily on our porch swing. For the first time in months, she had completed a full school day without anxiety. She had even raised her hand in class. "Are the bad things going to stop now, Dad?" she asked, leaning against my shoulder. "I believe they are," I replied, watching a patrol car pass our house without slowing. "Sometimes standing up to bullies takes time and help from others, but justice eventually prevails." Emily considered this with the solemn wisdom of children who have faced adversity too young. "Like in my storybooks." "Yes," I agreed, "like in your storybooks." The county courthouse stood as it had for generations, its limestone facade gleaming in the morning sunlight. 6 months had passed since that fateful afternoon in the school pickup line. 6 months of meticulous documentation, clandestine meetings, and growing courage among Sheriff Sheila's victims. Today, all those efforts would culminate in the State Police Oversight Commission's public hearing. Emily wore her favorite blue dress, her hair neatly braided. She held my hand tightly as we climbed the courthouse steps, joining the growing crowd of Millfield residents. Many nodded in greeting, their previous fear transformed into solidarity. Miguel Martinez and his son stood near the entrance, alongside Alina, Judge Thornton, and Deputy Gardner. Dozens of others whose stories we had gathered over months waited quietly for the proceedings to begin. Inside the main courtroom, Sheriff Sheila sat at the respondent's table, resplendent in her full dress uniform adorned with medals and insignia. 6 deputies lined the wall behind her, their expressions carefully neutral. She projected absolute confidence, occasionally glancing toward the gallery with undisguised contempt. Commissioner Lockhart called the hearing to order precisely at 9:00 a.m. This commission will hear evidence regarding allegations of misconduct, abuse of power, financial impropriety, and violation of civil rights against Sheriff Sheila Jackson of Millfield County. These proceedings will determine whether sufficient cause exists to recommend removal from office and potential criminal charges. Sheriff Sheila's attorney immediately raised objections about procedural matters, jurisdiction questions, and the admissibility of certain evidence. Each objection was systematically addressed and overruled as the commission established its authority under state law. The Attorney General's representative presented a comprehensive overview of our evidence, financial records showing misappropriation of department funds, statistical analysis demonstrating targeted enforcement against specific individuals, testimony from former deputies regarding improper directives, and statements from dozens of citizens documenting systematic intimidation and harassment. When my turn to testify arrived, Sheriff Sheila's expression remained impassive. I recounted the school pickup incident in careful detail, describing her threats toward Emily and the subsequent campaign of harassment against our family. Her attorney attempted to characterize my testimony as exaggerated and motivated by resentment over justified traffic citations. The commission will now review video evidence related to the initial incident, Commissioner Lockhart announced. The courtroom fell silent as the school security footage appeared on the large monitor. The recording captured every moment of Sheriff Sheila's confrontation with Emily, her aggressive stance, her intimidating proximity to my 8-year-old daughter, the fear evident in Emily's posture. Most critically, it recorded Sheriff Sheila's exact words, "Remember my face, because I remember yours now." Sheriff Sheila's composure fractured visibly. She had not known this recording existed. She conferred urgently with her attorney, who requested a recess that was denied. Emily's testimony followed. My brave daughter approached the witness stand, took the oath with solemn dignity, and answered questions with clear, unwavering honesty. When asked how Sheriff Sheila's actions had affected her, Emily described her nightmares, her fear of police officers, and her reluctance to participate in school activities. "I used to want to be a police officer," she concluded softly. "Now I am afraid of them." The commission's questioning of Sheriff Sheila revealed the full extent of her misconduct. Under increasingly pointed interrogation, her explanations became contradictory. When confronted with financial discrepancies, she blamed administrative staff. When presented with recorded directives to deputies, she claimed they were taken out of context. When faced with the statistical evidence of targeted enforcement, she cited proactive policing strategies. Her composure collapsed entirely when Deputy Gardner testified about specific instances where she had ordered retaliatory actions against citizens who questioned her authority. "You're dead to this department," she shouted, rising from her seat before her attorney could intervene. "All of you." Commissioner Lockhart gavelled for order. "Sheriff Jackson, that outburst will be noted in the record." The commission's deliberations lasted just under 2 hours. Their return to the courtroom was met with tense silence. This commission finds substantial evidence of misconduct, abuse of power, financial impropriety, and civil rights violations by Sheriff Sheila Jackson, Commissioner Lockhart announced. "We hereby recommend immediate suspension from duty pending formal removal proceedings. Additionally, We are referring evidence of criminal misconduct to the State Attorney General's office for potential prosecution. As Sheriff Sheila was escorted from the courtroom, now without her badge and service weapon, she passed our row. For a brief moment, her eyes met Emily's. This time, it was Sheriff Sheila who looked away first. Outside the courthouse, spring sunshine warmed the gathering of community members who had finally found their collective voice. Emily tugged my hand, pointing toward the playground visible across the town square. "Can we go swing now?" she asked, her smile reaching her eyes for the first time in months. "Yes," I answered, feeling the weight of fear lifting from both our shoulders. "We can do whatever you want." As we walked toward the playground hand in hand, Deputy Gardner, now Interim Sheriff Gardner, approached us. "Thank you," he said simply. "You reminded all of us why we took the oath to serve and protect in the first place." Emily looked up at him, considering his uniform and badge with cautious curiosity rather than fear. "Would you like to see my badge?" he offered gently. After a moment's hesitation, Emily nodded. Sheriff Gardner knelt to her level, unpinning his badge and placing it carefully in her small hands. "This belongs to the people of this county," he explained. "Including you, we just take care of it for a while." Emily traced the emblem with her finger before returning it. "I think you will take good care of it," she decided. As Sheriff Gardner walked away, Emily turned to me with the resilience that continues to amaze me daily. "Dad, I think maybe I do want to be a police officer again someday. A good one." In that moment, watching my daughter reclaim her sense of safety and possibility, I knew that our ordeal had not merely ended. It had transformed into something meaningful. Justice had prevailed not through violence or vengeance, but through courage, community, and unwavering commitment to truth. Sometimes that is all it takes to change a town. One voice becomes two, two become 10, and eventually even the most powerful bully must face the consequence of their actions.